history students. So this is our second video on contextualizing Unit 4. And in this video, we're going to explain what the context for the development of transoceanic interconnections is in the 1450 to 1750 time period. But we're going to do it differently than I did in the other video. So again, we're going to begin with what is context and how do I earn it? And then we're going to talk about what this unit is about. So we begin with answering that question. What is context and how do I earn it? Well, guys, context basically is the setting. And this setting, this statement, does two things. It describes what's going on in the world. What events and developments are leading up to the topic that you're focused on. And there's a statement that connects or explains how the topic is connected to that setting. So this is something that you will do a lot in AP and on the AP exam. It will be in stimulus choice, multiple choice questions. It will be in the SAQ. But what we're focusing on is the introduction paragraph for a DBQ or an LEQ essay. In those first 4 to 8 sentences, we're going to describe the setting of the world, focusing in this video on what's leading up to it. And we're going to connect the topic of maritime empires to that setting. So, in order to earn credit for a contextualization statement, we have to meet some requirements. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is these statements, these paragraphs, have to be between 4, 6, 7, 8 sentences long. They can be more than 6, but they cannot be less than 4. This is found and will only count for credit in the introductory paragraph. And again, we're going to describe the setting and we're going to explain how the topic is connected. So the key thing here is when we write this, we first of all are going to describe the setting. In the last video, we talked about defining the general characteristics of the age. In this video, we're going to look at the events and the developments that led up to the topic. But both ways require an explanation of how the topic, in this case being the development of transoceanic interconnections, is connected. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a good example. But let's move on. So we need to talk about what this unit is about. And instead of just defining what the 1450 and the 1750 period is about, we're going to talk about what led up to this time period. So what this unit is about is the development of the worldwide network of communication and exchange. Between 1450 and 1750, a worldwide network of communication and exchange was created by maritime empires that not only saw the worldwide diffusion of economic items such as gold, silver, luxury goods, and commodities, but also the spread of culture, the spread of biologics such as animals and plants and diseases, and finally the movement of people. So this is what we're talking about. So when we contextualize this, the College Board wants you to have this skill to situate this by connecting these things to the specifics of time and place. Well, that's a little bit confusing, but basically what you need to talk about is you need to establish the causes of the event, the process or development, meaning the topic. This statement must relate the focus of the study, the topic, to the broader events and developments that occur before, during, or continue after the frame of the question. So in this way, and remember, there's 2 ways to earn context. We want to establish the causes of the event, development, or process as they lead up to the specific event, development, or process. And we want to establish the broader developments of the process at the global level to show how the specific event, development, or process was situated within those developments. This is a fancy way to say, like I said before, describe the setting on the left and explain how the topic is connected on the right. So the contextualization for the transoceanic interconnections that developed after 1450 should be done by establishing the events and the developments that led up to the transoceanic interconnections that occurred from 1200 to 1450 and situate their development as a result of these. So we begin with 1200. We know in 1200 we have the rise of trading states and empires. And these trading states and empires focused on trade as a way to provide for their people. Examples would be Song China, the Mongols, the Delhi Sultanate, and the Kingdom of Mali, that all were created during this time period, 1200 to 1450, and focused on trade. That starting in the 1300s, with the Little Ice Age, we have a change in demand. We have decline in the average temp that started in 1300s and decreased the food supply, raised food prices, and limited people's ability to specialize in trade. Trade decreases, demand declines, and due to the rising prices of food, people had less income to buy luxury goods. People had to focus on survival and could specialize less in the production and trade of luxury goods. Then we have the Black Death, and it temporarily stopped trade because, let's face it, everybody was dying. So trade further decreases, leading to the collapse of these states. The Little Ice Age and Black Death ended trade over the Silk Road and led to the fall of land empires and trading states. In Europe, Dar al-Islam and China, governments collapsed. The Mongols collapsed. In sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, even though they didn't have to deal with the Black Death, they collapsed too because there was no trade. So let's take a break here. We're still describing what leads up to interregional connections. And essentially what's happening is we had states in 1200. They made this great trade network. But in the 1300s, we begin to see problems such as the Little Ice Age and the Black Death begin to slow trade down until it ended. Because these states were dependent upon trade, they collapsed too. So, after 1400, new land empires and nation states developed across Afro-Eurasia. These states used gunpowder weapons to expand to reach their economic goals. Their economic goals were to expand to increase their income through controlling access to trade and or controlling the production of valuable items to trade. These new states legitimized their rule using religion, art, and monumental structures, centralized their power using professional bureaucracy and military, and financed their state using innovative tax systems. Obviously, this is the rise of empires. But Europe is at a great disadvantage. To get the spices and the cotton and the pepper that came from the Indian Ocean system, they had to trade it for something. And they really didn't have anything. How much wool could you buy? Also, access was controlled by the Ottoman Empire, who was an Islamic empire and jacked up prices. So this leads to a gold famine. The gold famine basically means a lack of income in gold and silver for European merchants and European states because they couldn't pay their taxes. So what happens is the European rulers began to use their navy to explore and find new sources of gold and new routes to India that they can control and profit from. So, before you read this, let's kind of discuss what we talked about. Contextualization is providing the setting and connecting the topic to that setting. In this style, we're talking about what led up to this. So we know that the general organization of this statement is going to talk about from 1200 to 1300, we have new states and trading states, that these trading states and new states, empires, focus on the development of interregional trade to bring in wealth. But unfortunately, during the 1300s, essentially what happens is because of the Little Ice Age and the Black Death, this trade slows down. Because they slowed down, all these states collapsed. After 1450, we see new empires developing, especially land empires, that they're going to use gunpowder to expand and meet their economic goals through trade. But unfortunately, Europe's at a disadvantage, so they used their navies to create maritime routes to find gold in Africa and to trade directly with Asia. So this is an example of a contextualist statement that described the events and the developments that led up to the topic of the development of transoceanic interconnections. Starting in 1200, new land empires and trading states were established across Afro-Eurasia that developed the means to unify, rule, and provide for their populations, to bring in wealth and increase the loyalty of their populations, and to create a source of income to finance their state. These states expanded trade from Afro-Eurasia using the Silk Roads, Indian Ocean system, and Trans-Sahara. Starting in 1300, the vital trade routes across Afro-Eurasia began to decline because of the Little Ice Age and the Black Death. Eventually, trade declined to the point where the lack of wealth led to the fall of land empires and trading states. After 1450, new land empires and nation states developed across Afro-Eurasia. These states used gunpowder weapons to expand to reach their economic goals, to expand and increase their income through controlling access to trade, and or controlling the production of valuable items to trade. Land empires were successful, but the nation states of Europe were at a disadvantage because their people demanded spices, cotton, and pepper that came from the Indian Ocean system, but lacked a commodity to trade for it. Also, access to these luxury goods was controlled by the Ottoman empires, and prices were high. In seeking to solve this problem and the gold famine, the nation-states of Western Europe began to sponsor transoceanic explorations to find new sources of gold. This exploration established new maritime connections across the world and changed the pattern of long-distance trade that included the global circulation of commodities and the formation of new regional trade markets and financial centers. Okay, the development of transoceanic interconnections was caused by the need of European states to solve the gold famine. This led to the development of maritime empires who used unique political systems to rule, provide for their diverse populations, new economic systems to promote the flow of wealth worldwide, and changes in labor systems and social structures.